Good morning, PTNI's Daily Show. Hope everyone's having a good morning so far. I apologize for the camera angle. I'm outside in a parking lot here at Proactivity West, if you can see it behind me, getting ready to do Murph for Memorial Day. So we got here early, so we can't get inside, so we are doing this out in the parking lot. So today I want to talk about veterans issues, post-traumatic stress, and suicide among the veteran population. I think it's an appropriate topic for Memorial Day, and I think among the faculty here, probably of all of them, I'm the most uniquely qualified to talk about this. For those who don't know, I am a military veteran. So we're getting ready to do Murph, and I'll touch on that in a little bit, why it's so important for today. But I want to get into a couple different things about veterans issues, post-traumatic stress, and suicide. So when we get down to it, what is Memorial Day? What besides beers and barbecue, what is Memorial Day? And I think it's inappropriate to say Happy Memorial Day. Something my mom does, no matter how many times I've corrected her. I don't think it's a happy day. I don't think it has to be a sad day, though. It's just a day where we kind of take a moment to remember all of those who were killed in the line of service in the military. It doesn't have to be active duty military. Zach, on last Friday, misspoke a bit. Reservists, guardsmen, anybody killed, in service to the military. And I think there, too, there's an issue there that it doesn't account for those who kind of lose the battle after they return home, those who commit suicide or go on to die of illness or injury after their service. So I think already just kind of the definition is flawed in and of itself. So talking about veteran suicide especially, veterans experience a 200% risk in suicide in their first year of transition out of the military, which I think speaks volumes to kind of a larger issue at play there. Overall, there's been a 35% increase in suicides among military veterans since 9/11, since 2001. And when we look at men who have served in combat versus their non-military peers, there's a 600% risk in suicide, which is massive. So 6 times more likely to commit suicide if you are a man who's served in combat versus your peers. The number for women is about 200%. So still much more likely to commit suicide just by having served in the military and served in combat. And I want to talk about this today too. Something my good friend Allie Hartman said this weekend to me that really struck a chord with me is as a civilian, as somebody who doesn't interact often with the military, how do I say anything? Because she said, I feel so insincere having not served and not really knowing anybody who served. So I think what I'll start with today is I'll describe my history, and you all know me, and therefore you will then know a veteran. And that should make you a little bit more comfortable talking about these issues when you meet veterans out in public, when you meet veterans in the clinic. So 2006, I wouldn't say I was a burnout, but I definitely wasn't meeting my maximum potential my first time in undergrad. So I dropped out of college and joined the Army with my roommate, went into the infantry, deployed almost immediately to Iraq, served in Iraq, came back home and experienced kind of the first warning sign that everything wasn't in place as far as how we treat our veterans as a country. When I got back from Iraq, I had 90 days of leave, and I was pretty much just cut loose from the moment I got off the plane. 90 days of leave. Didn't have anywhere to stay. I went and lived with my sister and her, now my brother-in-law, but her then boyfriend for a while. And I pretty much just drank myself unconscious every day and played video games because I didn't know what else to do with my time. All the people I had served with were scattered across the country, and I didn't interact with them at all in that time period. It was a very dark period in my life. I think that if I had had a car or something, it would have been a much more dangerous period in my life. But I was pretty much just stuck in a bedroom with alcohol, with a liquor store across the street. So I was largely able to just mess myself up and not anybody else. During that time period, I received a phone call from the VA. Very nice lady, but she asked me 3 questions. Do I think I have PTSD? Do I have thoughts of killing myself? And do I think I drink too much? And of course, I said no to all of those things, even the alcohol one, as I was actively drinking while this lady asked me if I thought I drank too much. And then she congratulated me on not having PTSD, and the call was concluded. And then shortly thereafter, my leave ended, and I went back and did some further deployments. Got out of the military in 2013, and again, kind of just cut loose, and that kind of repeated after each deployment as well. Just kind of cut loose for a while, go back home, try not to kill myself, and then come back and do it again. 2013, got out of the military, got back into undergrad, had a real hard time with undergrad, just being so much more older than the typical undergraduate student, about a decade older. Same recurring themes, lots of drinking, way too much drinking, blackout type drinking almost every day, becoming really kind of a functional alcoholic almost. Volunteered for a study at the VA in Ann Arbor in 2014 as a control patient who did not have PTSD. And maybe about 25 minutes into the study, the psychologist doing the interviewing and the questionnaires stopped the tape, and he said, "All right, we need to discuss something." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" He goes, "Yeah, you volunteered as somebody who doesn't have PTSD, but it seems that you have a pretty severe case." And I kind of laughed, but he was very serious, and he knew that I was, a college-educated person and could handle talking about all the data and stuff. And he walked me through all the questionnaires, and he showed these are abnormal responses. And I said, "Well, I don't have PTSD, man. I have like a job. I went to college. I'm killing it. I'm successful. I'm living the dream, right? I'm checking all the boxes that you're supposed to check." And he said, "A lot of these answers are abnormal answers. It doesn't matter if you appear successful on the outside. There's some stuff going on the inside that we need to address." And so he moved me to the experimental group with psychological counseling and taking Zoloft, sertraline. And so I finished the study, moving from the control group to the experimental group unintentionally, and was diagnosed with PTSD in 2014. And from there, it didn't go quite like the commercials would make you think it would go. I was taking the medication. I didn't feel a change. My wife at the time said I was much better, much more controlled and even keeled. But I certainly didn't feel a difference. If anything, I felt worse. They were too busy, too many patients to take me on for caseload, so I was pretty much just given the medication and sent on my way, which I think is pretty typical for a lot of vets. But I continued to feel really isolated. I felt weird with the medication, and I felt the same way moving into grad school for physical therapy. Just really isolated, even though I was among all these people every day. I just felt like I didn't belong, wasn't part of the group. So a theme that now I know that I didn't know then is just how incredibly unhealthy I was otherwise, not just mental health. Not exercising, eating very terribly, poor sleep, no social connection, just feeling lousy all the time, gaining a lot of weight. And I think that's common with a lot of veterans is we get out of the military and we think, great, we never have to exercise again. No more 10-mile runs every morning. We can just coast the rest of our life. We made it. We don't have to worry about what we eat anymore. That's not something civilians have to worry about. And I think that's a typical experience, and it's definitely something that I experienced. And then just alcohol, just how toxic it can be when you're already in a fragile mental state, how much more it can compound things. And certainly I've seen that amongst my friends that I served with, that they struggle with alcohol, both, personally at home and with, the legal system as well, all the ramifications that drinking and being drunk all the time can have on a person. And it really it messed with my marriage too. Became kind of this point of contention with my ex-wife. This PTSD thing. I felt like it just became me, and I wasn't me anymore. And that anytime I disagreed, it was because of my PTSD, or this or that because of my PTSD, and it really drove a wedge between us. So what has changed since then? Over the past 3 months, some of you know I've kind of gone off the deep end, you could say, with CrossFit, exercising every day. I've lost 82 pounds. Really kind of frugal about my diet now, mostly plants, not a lot of processed foods, not a lot of meat, a lot more sleep, 2 to 3 hours more a night than I normally get, and just making more time for those, especially in-person connections. I mean, I flew out here to New Jersey just to hang out with Allie and her husband Jake this weekend and their family, really committing to spending time with people in person, not just that social media connection, which seems like a real connection, but I think is not, especially if you haven't actually met the people you're talking to online. It can seem like you're interacting, but I think when we get down to the heart of it, we're not. And I feel really good. I feel awesome. I haven't taken my medication in a couple months, and I feel awesome. And I think that speaks volumes to, this is Monday, so this is Monday with the Pop, how important it is to address all the facets of a person, their movement, their nutrition, how they're fueling, their sleep, their social interactions, and not just giving them a pill for one specific thing. We have to address all aspects of that. There's a great book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. He's a war correspondent. It's a really easy read. It's about 150 pages, and it kind of tackles this whole issue of this disconnect that veterans feel when they leave the military, because we spend pretty much our entire existence in the military in a tribal setting, living very close together, groups of 8 to 14 people, sharing all resources, water, food, whatever, and then that kind of gets ripped away from us when we leave, and I think it kind of echoes throughout our entire post-military life, that we never really feel that connection again with somebody. I think that has a lot of long-term ramifications. Something Sebastian Junger says in his book is that PTSD seems like a medical term for a cultural problem, and I think that's pretty much hitting it right on the head. Kind of have these hunter-gatherer souls trapped in this rugged Ayn Rand individualistic society, and kind of the way we're built and honed in the military doesn't really mesh well with how, especially here in America, how our society is, individual, don't share resources, do everything by yourself. And I think that disconnect there is what a lot of veterans feel. And I think if you combine that with the poor support that most veterans get from the military when they leave and from the VA after they've left, it's kind of a recipe for disaster, and it's no wonder that suicide is so high, and continues to be the #1 killer of veterans, and military members instead of combat, which is something that should kind of shock us all, that we lose more people to suicide than who die in combat. It should definitely be the other way around, if we're taking care of our veterans the right way. So when you have a patient that's a veteran, or a client, or a friend, or a family member, how can you work with them to make their lives better? I think first of all, we just have to talk about it. Mental health in general, we really don't talk about it. Physical therapy or healthcare in general, unless it's kind of glaringly apparent, it's just not addressed. We don't engage about it. We don't talk about it. It's really uncomfortable, and kind of as a society, we've become really bad at being uncomfortable in all aspects of our lives, physically and mentally. But it's uncomfortable to talk about, so we don't talk about it. I think that's something that has to change. Something else I think you can do is ask, if you are in a traditional setting, put it on your questionnaire, ask if people are military veterans. And I think that's, if they are, that's a great way to show that you care and you're aware that there's different issues among different patient populations, and that you can start addressing it that way. It's really important for veterans to find their next mission. We're very objective-oriented, task accomplishers. We get a lot of intrinsic satisfaction from completing objectives and missions, and we have to get these people into their next mission. Often when they leave the military, they don't have a job, they don't really have a path in life, and it really shows once they get out of the military. So help them, you don't have to give them a job, but help them access their GI Bill resources to get back in school or start school for the first time. Post 9/11 veterans get 36 months paid of college with housing allowance too. And it's something like only 13% of veterans use that. So there's all this unused money. Some people just don't know how to access it. They don't know how to get started, and that's certainly a spot where you can help veterans get started. You can also connect them with veteran service organizations. So things like the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, IAVA, which is an organization I support, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, a very progressive, modern veteran service organization. There are also some international service organizations, Team Red, White, and Blue and Team Rubicon. Take the experience that veterans have with working in crises and working kind of under fire, and to take them to places like Haiti and other war-torn and calamity-torn countries, and put them to work rebuilding using their strategic skills and planning skills and kind of work ethic to find their next mission, to complete the next mission. Help them get their lifestyle on track. Just because they're done in the military doesn't mean they're done exercising. It doesn't mean they can eat like crap now. They don't have to watch their weight or watch what they eat. Talk to them about their sleep. It's another area we don't really address. Talk to them about how they're sleeping, and then help them get connected either with another group or other veterans in the community. Something I think that has been monumental in my transformation these past couple months is just not only the community here at ICE and the community at APHPT, but the CrossFit community as well. Just how supportive my gym has been. I owe a lot to my good friend Mitch Babcock for that, for getting me involved in that community. That's helped me a lot, so much these past couple months. And it feels like the more social networks you have, you kind of build this ever-increasing layer, kind of like a fort of all these different networks, kind of like walls that you can rely on in times of trouble. And the more you have, I think the better you'll be as a person, and that's especially true for veterans. So I hope that helps a little bit to kind of give you a perspective, if you haven't had one before, on veterans issues and how to work with and help veterans. Today we're going to do Murph. So Murph is a CrossFit workout. It's a hero workout. 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another 1 mile run. And it looks devastating, and it's supposed to be. It should be, 45 to 60 minutes of vigorous exercise. So why do we do this? We do it to honor the man who is named for it, which I'll talk about in a second. But I think this is really important because it helps you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When I do this workout, I think, well, it really sucks, but it's only an hour. And this is kind of how our service members feel pretty much the entire day, some days, especially on a deployment, from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, just physically and mentally smoked every hour of the day. And I think that if we can do an hour a day in their honor, then that really shows that we're willing to try and stand in their shoes, if only for a little bit. So I'll finish by reading Lieutenant Murphy's citation for his Medal of Honor. If you don't know anything about it, 2004 in Asadabad, Afghanistan, a 4-man SEAL team was inserted. Things went south fast. 3 of the 4 members died. The surviving member, Marcus Luttrell, went on to write a book, Operation Red Wings, Lone Survivor. And there was a movie a couple years ago with Mark Wahlberg, I believe, about it. But I'll read the citation and then I'll let you guys go, because I gotta run these fine folks here through Murph here shortly. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, is the leader of a special reconnaissance element with Naval Special Warfare Task Unit Afghanistan on 27 and 28 June, while leading a mission to locate a high-level anti-coalition militia leader. Lieutenant Murphy demonstrated extraordinary heroism in the face of grave danger in the vicinity of Asadabad, Kunar Province, Afghanistan. On 28 June, Operating in an extremely rugged, enemy-controlled area, Lieutenant Murphy's team was discovered by anti-coalition militia sympathizers who revealed their position to Taliban fighters. As a result, between 30 and 40 enemy fighters besieged his 4-member team. Demonstrating exceptional resolve, Lieutenant Murphy valiantly led his men, engaging a large enemy force. The ensuing fierce firefight resulted in numerous enemy casualties, as well as the wounding of all 4 members of the team. Ignoring his own wounds and demonstrating exceptional composure, Lieutenant Murphy continued to lead and encourage his men. When the primary communicator fell mortally wounded, Lieutenant Murphy repeatedly attempted to call for assistance for his beleaguered teammates. Realizing the impossibility of communicating in extreme terrain and in the face of almost certain death, he fought his way into open terrain to gain a better position to transmit a call. This deliberate, heroic act deprived him of cover, exposing him to direct enemy fire. Finally, achieving contact with his headquarters, Lieutenant Murphy maintained his exposed position while he provided his location and requested immediate support. In his final act of bravery, he continued to engage the enemy until he was mortally wounded, gallantly giving his life for his country and for the cause of freedom. By his selfless leadership, courageous actions, and extraordinary devotion to duty, Lieutenant Murphy reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. So, when I'm going to go do this workout here in a few minutes, when I'm thinking about quitting, I'm going to remember this because I think it's really important that your body can do more, your mind can do more than you ever think possible. And that if this guy can keep talking on the radio while he's shot 4 times in the chest and finish the call, then you can certainly finish this workout. So I'll leave it there. If anybody wants to talk about this kind of stuff, if you know a veteran that's in trouble, please reach out to me. I love to help with that kind of stuff. So have a good day. If you're doing Murph, hydrate, stretch after. You'll thank me later, and have a great day.